Good morning, good afternoon, I guess, for us here on the East Coast. On behalf of the Learning Bar, I'd like to welcome you to our session today, School-Wide Strategies to Support Students with School Attendance Challenges. My name is Lorna Cameron. I'm a Client Success Specialist here with the Learning Bar, former educator, and we are so excited for you to join us today to hear from our special guest. Before we begin, though, the Learning Bar would like to acknowledge the ancestral territory of the first peoples in our respective regions for which we work, learn, and gather today. We pay our respects to the members past and present as they have stewarded the land for generations. And I am confident that we will continue to work together in the spirit of truth and reconciliation. So in today's session, we'll explore the factors that make school feel challenging for some learners and share practical strategies to remove those barriers. The discussion will focus on school-wide approaches, including the development of a responsive education support team, the use of assessment tools to better understand attendance challenges, and the implementation of targeted action plans that promote belonging and engagement. So I'm just going to introduce you now to our special guest, Cheryl Boswell. And there's quite a little bit here, so I had to do a bit of a concise summary, and I'm going to have to read it because I just could not memorize it all. So Cheryl Boswell is the Executive Director and founder of Youth Mental Health Canada. It's a registered nonprofit organization, actually the largest online mental health platform in Canada and the largest youth mental health platform internationally. She's also an educator with experience across elementary, secondary, post-secondary, and adult education. Her presentations, workshops, and courses reflect a deep integration of expertise in education, mental health, wellness, human rights, and equity, disability awareness, and support. She has written 5 mental wellness journal workbooks, 5 booklets, printables, 2 resources addressing school attendance challenges. Cheryl offers practical tools for educators and families. Her guidebook on supporting students with school phobia, avoidance, and chronic absenteeism, alongside a student workbook for upstream prevention, demonstrates her commitment to actionable, inclusive solutions. A recognized voice in the field, Cheryl is a member of the International Association of, just lost that there. Just a sec. Of Youth Mental Health, the International and the International Network for School Attendance. So I'm really excited for you to hear from Cheryl today and confident that you're going to leave with some actionable insights you can use immediately to support your students. And please feel free to post any questions or observations that you have in the chat, and we'll have an opportunity for discussions after Cheryl has presented today. So welcome, Cheryl. I think we can get started.
Okay, thank you, Lorna. Okay, well, welcome everyone. All right, so land acknowledgement and commitment from me. So I am located, I thought I had an X, the X moved. Well, if you can see Lake Ontario, I'm in the southwestern tip, the tip on the west. In Hamilton, it's situated upon the traditional territories of the Erie, neutral Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas. YMHC has been in existence for 12 years, and we are committed to taking action to support the TRC report and working with our Indigenous partners and communities. And I want to say that I'm grateful for the support we've had over the last 12 years from Indigenous people and communities. It's really made a difference for us as an organization. In the last 5 years, we've donated over $400,000 worth of workbooks, workshops, and training courses, not just to Indigenous communities, but to So, Lorna introduced me. There I am on the left. There, it's an Ontario TV program. As she mentioned, I'm the executive director. I've taught all ages. I'm also a career counselor, and I started in the field of school attendance challenges over 30 years ago as a stay-in-school coordinator in Toronto. And at that time, our focus wasn't on student mental health, it was on student engagement. So, making education meaningful and relevant by bringing resource people into the classroom and students into the community to make practical applications in their learning. I have over 30 years experience in this field, and I've provided training to thousands of education mental health professionals across Canada internationally, contributed to provincial and national change in education to support students with disabilities, blah, 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 other things. An overview of what we're going to talk about. So using the multi-tiered system of support, MTSS, which I'm sure you're familiar with, language for describing school absence issues over the last 100 years, there's been research conducted, and global attendance issues will highlight that, these are global issues. It's not just a Canada-wide problem. Other countries have been working many more years on these issues. The impact of educational loss, and then look at school-wide strategies, and using a whole school change framework. We'll look at understanding the problem. I don't put so much attention to causative factors, because it gets, can get bogged down there and that not focus on the student. Why are they, that kind of thing. Although understanding the needs and going beneath the surface is crucial. And so, we have to fit the needs. So we have to understand the student's experience of school, to be able to meet their needs. Warning signs and symptoms, risk factors, all of those kinds of things. The school-wide strategies I'm going to talk about is the development of an education support team. Internationally, that those often are called school attendance teams. For me, school is much more than attendance. It's about engagement, attainment, and through individualized, accessible, and inclusive models. I developed a strategy called ARPRE, which I will talk about. We'll talk about the importance of information, documentation, assessment, not to create more bureaucracy, but to get information to help us. And then developing action plans, the importance of data for making change and the way forward, and then talking about resources that are available to you to help you in these many challenges that we face. Okay, so tier one is universal support strategies. All students need support. We can't predict conclusively which students might have mental health challenges or school attendance challenges or learning challenges in the future. And it's a overwhelming, challenging world we live in now. So you can assume that most students at some point in their secondary career or time or elementary time, that they're going to have some challenges. So I think universal support strategies are really crucial. Tier two is targeted support. So what we're looking for is warning signs for early intervention, because sort of nipping things in the bud clearly is a preventative, proactive approach. And tier three, the most intensive way of supporting students, obviously we don't want to get to tier three. So if we can do anything to support students so they don't, reach that crisis sort of point. Crisis for them with entrenched patterns, but also for us. It can be very difficult when a student is at tier three, to find the kinds of educational accommodations and schooling models that fit their needs. So I'm going to talk about tier one, universal support. You'll notice I put questions here, the reflection questions, because I only have 40 minutes for the webinar. So I want you to think about the questions, reflect, and then in the discussion time, we can talk about your ideas, your challenges, your experiences, and what you think. So the first question to consider is give examples of universal support strategies, support that we can provide in schools to benefit all students and their well-being. When I've asked this question in workshops in the past, internationally or nationally, you know, we know, many of us know the multi-tiered system of support, but when we're asked, well, what do you do for, it's called tier one, what do you do for tier two? Often there's not many examples. People can't, the examples don't come to mind, the strategies. So, you know, I'll talk about some ideas that you can sort of implement for tier one that I've developed, and I think they're really good strategies. Okay, so student well-being is fundamental as a universal support strategy. Fundamental to every aspect of a student's life and learning. There is no learning without good mental health and wellness. For students and for educators, it's critical. Student well-being encompasses physical, emotional, social, and mental health and directly affects how students engage, learn, behave, and grow. Fine with Zoom, the bar always is in the wrong place, right? When students feel safe, supported, and valued, they're able to succeed both academically and personally. So you're probably familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And isn't it interesting that all of these needs need to be in place in order for the readiness for a student to be ready to learn? So we need to make sure that their physiological needs are met, that there's no issues of food or housing insecurity, financial insecurity, transportation insecurity, all of those kind of things, that they feel safe in the school. That love, and so not just physically safe, but cognitively, socially, emotionally safe. Love and belonging needs. So the importance of a sense of belonging, connection, and caring, those protective factors that within school communities we're building that strong sense of belonging and pride in their school community. Social connections, friendship, and intimacy, a sense of belonging to groups. So really belonging to community groups, volunteer groups, school groups, really important. Esteem needs, feeling respected, valued, recognized, and then self-actualization, readiness to learn. And so you might have heard the expression Maslow before Bloom. So if we want the students to bloom and flourish, we need to make sure that all these other protective factors are in place. So I've developed what I call the ASAP model for tier one, ASAP, so awareness. So awareness of warning signs and symptoms, of triggers, of stressors, of mood and feelings. So self and emotional awareness. Then support, building support networks. So peer networks, school networks, community networks, and being more transparent about what support is available, who does what's the difference between a social worker and a psychologist and a child and youth care worker, whatever supports are available within your school, making those resources available or transparent to students and families. And then action. So often you'll notice that in a lot of the international training or resources that are available, it goes awareness, support, crisis. And what I have done here is action. That's the difference. That if we can empower students to take action to support their mental health and wellness and to support, so help seeking skills for themselves and for others, we are empowering people to take change in their lives. So the action is coping strategies, self-care strategies, distraction strategies, all the kind of tools that we need to teach so that people can take action to support themselves. And it's not, oh my God, I'm struggling with my mental health and then crisis, I'm falling apart. No, okay, you're struggling. What can we do? And then prevention is the core of this. So a preventative, proactive, practical model for support. So awareness looks at warning signs, any kind of change in behavior, in mood, in sleeping and eating habits, feelings, and physical symptoms. So there's ways you can do it where you're looking at some of those, but also describing the symptoms, the signs. So there's more awareness, more documentation. So if the person does reach out and speak to their GP or whoever, a counselor, or whatever, they've been thinking about these warning signs. There's more awareness, more information to give. Then the S, building support teams. So this template is included in the guidebook, and it looks at, I tried to create a generic template of who were the core school support professionals and that are available who contribute to the student mental health and wellness. Okay, so in all of these job descriptions of these people, supporting student mental health and wellness is part of their job description. So and there's job descriptions in the guidebook. So the student has to read through the job descriptions, make some key sort of summary, some key job duties there that they would put the information. And often with school support professionals, they might just be in the school one morning a week. So when are they available? What time? What's their name? All of those key sort of things. In the community, I also created a generic template of the kinds of support that might be available in a community, like a hospital, a talk therapist, crisis support. I mean, it's nationally provided through 988, three-digit number for mental health crisis, substance use crisis, and suicide crisis. For people of all ages, 988, text, chat, and talk. And you can also call for somebody who's in struggling. So it doesn't just have to be the person calling for themselves. If you're concerned about a student or a family member or a friend, you can contact 988. And Kids Help Phone, which is the same thing, right? Government program, a youth group, faith-based groups. So faith-based groups are getting more into supporting the mental health and wellness of their community, ethno-cultural group, fitness center, nonprofit mental health organization, and others. So it's not, here's a list of resources, it's do the detective work and so that there's more, it's staying in people's minds about, because they've actually put the work into documenting this. And then coping strategies, I mean, and the resources I've created, there's lots of checklists. These I'm just summarizing key things that you would look at. There's a lot more work involved with the student, getting awareness of all these areas. I'm just doing it quickly. So coping strategies, what are some social coping strategies, movement strategies, self-calming or soothing, shifting attention is a distraction strategy, a common in dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, called distress tolerance. So when you're in distress, how can you sort of take a pause, take a break, get your mind off of it and come back when you're ready. So good for emotional regulation, and then getting organized. And so it's just grouped into here, but there's a lot more involved in that. Early intervention, tier 2, awareness and support. So tier 2 is right there. Okay, so just as a summary, I want to say this is a very complex field. It involves, and very intersectional. It involves a lot of issues to consider. And at the same time, the solutions are individual. So we're looking at a real broad spectrum of issues that this student we're working with and supporting might be impacted by. At the same time, we need to understand their needs and create an individual strategy to support them. So school attendance challenges, and I use this umbrella language because it embraces the wide range of issues that students have that affect their ability to access and manage school. So, in a lot of my background, it's working with students with intense school anxiety and school phobia, real fear of school. Other students I've worked with had a fear of losing a loved one, and that it was also a phobic disorder. So, but there's bullying and harassment. There's some physical illness. There's so many reasons. And then people get lost in language and they forget the student because they're all concerned about the language. So I internationally, sometimes people call them school attendance problems or difficulties. I like challenges because challenges, we can overcome challenges. Problems, it feels like, you're sort of stuck. Challenges could be mental health challenges, learning challenges, all those other challenges. So school attendance issues are educational issues. So are affecting education, the loss of education. And as educators, that should impact us deeply because we believe in the power of education as a transformative vehicle, right? And so it hits me deeply, so I'm a passionate educator, first generation going to university from my family. So, I understand the value of it. And so it's really important to me. Mental health issues, anything in life affects your mental health and wellness. And these are mental health issues. So, whether the student has diagnosed mental health disabilities, chronic, that they live with, or this is impacting their mental health, they're very real issues. These are disability issues because anytime something is interfering with a student's ability to access school, access an education, interferes with their functioning, their ability to function, that's a disability. That's the definition of disability. These are human rights issues. Education is a service, and it's an obligation of service providers, the education system, to meet the human rights needs of students. So it's an obligation. It's not a choice whether you support students or not. It's an obligation. Suicide prevention issues, anything that increases risk factors for students is a suicide risk. And people don't get that when we're not providing the support, we are increasing suicide risk factors. So if you look at suicide warning signs, despair, distress, hopelessness, isolation, withdrawal, um, loss of peer network and school support network and all of those things, those are suicide risk factors, and everyone is responsible for suicide prevention. That's also not a choice. Trauma issues, I mean, trauma, when we look at trauma types, there's so many types of trauma: birth trauma and life trauma and collective and disaster trauma and generational trauma. So many experiences that can last and stay with students, but school can be traumatizing. And the experience that students have, also punitive approaches, language that we use, or punitive, measures that we take to address attendance issues that are punishing students and families for not meeting their needs and helping them be able to access education. There are global issues, there are intersectional issues, so there's layers of intersections that are going on. Of course, when a child's not functioning well, it affects the functioning of the family. So for families, can be a very lonely experience because we've just started talking about this in Canada. So families feel alone, that nobody understands, that there's no empathy, no compassion, that instead of being supported and advocating for your child, you're being punished. Often people have to leave their job, reduced to part-time, are fired, all kinds of issues, and trying to get support from neighbors or family members, friends, or whatever is hard. And there's structural, societal, and systemic issues, right? So one size doesn't fit all. I like this range, because one, it's very visual, but you see in the middle, it's a volcanic explosion or implosion. So effectively, the student is imploding because they can't contain their intense feelings of anxiety, fear, panic, in school. And so they start avoiding school and are absent from school. So early intervention, the warning signs are 1 to 3, physical and emotional complaints, able to attend school, have difficulties before and during school, or difficulty leaving the house and entering the school, but they get there. So, and the survey we did, national survey, 519 families, almost 50% of the families said the first warning signs age 5 years old. So entry into school is not just about separation attachment. It's also about these warning signs of intense school anxiety, bolting down the highway, out or of the hallway, sorry, or out of the school. All of those sort of things that we see in schools when the child has difficulty being in the school building. It's hard for educators to imagine because it's a place that we generally love. We choose to be educators. So, but it's a place that some students have this inexplainable fear. Um, and it's actually, there's language in Latin and Greek to explain this fear of school. School avoidance arrives late or absent in the morning or afternoon, and occasional absences or lateness. And you see this often in middle school where students are given some autonomy, can be independent and come to school on their own, leave at lunch, whatever. So maybe the students would have been avoiding if they could have earlier, but they can't. School absence for a period of time or a lengthy absence. So this is a real challenge for people in the educations. If they've waited till 6 to do something, and or 7, you've got an entrenched school stress response pattern there, very difficult to break, right? So it's not impossible, but it's very challenging. So people talk about exposure therapy, graduated approaches, those kinds of things. More able to do that in school avoidance, but when you've got an entrenched pattern, very difficult to break it. When it's a pattern that, we all know patterns from families and how difficult that can be to, you know. So the question here is, what challenges have you had in supporting students to access and manage school? Save your thoughts, save your challenges till after, and then we can talk about them, because I'm sure you've all had lots of challenges. It's a very challenging field. Language used to describe school attendance challenges, there's a wide range internationally of language. And if you look at the 100 years of research in language, and I think I put it on our school attendance challenges website, which is ymhc.ngo/SAC. You'll see, I think I put the research, the 100 years. It's really, a lot of this language is used over the last 100 years. And in countries are different what language is popular or common. Emotionally based school avoidance, EBSA, is used in the UK. It's becoming less popular. School can't, not won't, is used in Australia, and becoming more popular in the UK. So people will call it school can't. I see more people using school anxiety, school induced anxiety, school phobia, which is great because in Canada, if people called it anything, and in the over 30 years I've worked in the field, in the 90s, we talked about dropout rates. And then after that, we didn't talk about it. And so if in COVID we had so much research in COVID mental health and student virtual learning and whatever, and people would call it school refusal. So there's more of a range in Canada that is being used now. School, as I said, school attendance problems, SAPs, or school attendance difficulties. Educational neglect is used in some countries, including Canada, against parents to fine them, to send them to Children's Aid Service. you know, protective services, government social services to report them for bad parenting, basically. School avoidance, that's the fear of school there, emotional absenteeism, school reluctant, all kinds of language that's used. So understanding the problem, it's not that I don't want to go to school, it's that I can't. It's this very strong feeling, I can't. I can't. And you say, why? Why? They can't explain it. Okay. So these attendance challenges affect their sleeping, waking up. So waking up feeling tired because they had difficulty getting to sleep and then difficulty while they're sleeping, difficulty leaving the house, difficulty entering the school building, and difficulty staying in school. So this is a school day, weekday problem. Weekends are fine, holidays are fine. It's a school day. The problem is school. Barriers to education. So I like this language because there's many barriers that students face in education and learning. Here's some, but we need to understand the barriers that student is facing. What are there? So often related to disability, and these are disability issues, financial barriers, systemic barriers, transportation. A huge issue often is transport, basic thing we can fix transportation. So in Ontario, the Ministry of Education reduced the transportation budget. So people that rely on school buses, if they're within a certain distance, they don't have access to a bus. Well, that's fixable. We can do something about that. And often, like even in Toronto, I had a family contact me. Actually, it was the Hospital for Sick Children contacted me first. I talked to the family. The number one barrier, the busing. And the school board has busing for students with disabilities, and this is a disability. So sometimes the solution is so basic, and possible. All kinds of barriers. Here's more anxiety and phobic disorders, safety concerns, sensory or social overload. So, there's a lot of mental health masking that happens, or masking, hiding. So there's no discrimination, hiding your challenges, your difficulties. So they might appear fine in school, and the most fine, they seem social, whatever, might have difficulties going into places with a lot of students. Like in high school, maybe cafeteria has like, hundreds of students. They might not eat lunch because they don't want to go in. So, we can't assume anything. Sensory overload, there could be all kinds of things that students have challenges with. Academic challenges. So they might, have difficulty in some subject matter, or language could be an issue. Relationship issues with peers or school staff, bullying, harassment, or discrimination. As I talked about, insecurity of issues, punitive approaches, and what's the last one? Fears, fears and panic. Okay, so understanding, I wrote this book last year. I think it's a fantastic book. I love it. Can you see it? I don't know, not really. Anyway, it's got a tree in. And I'll show you the picture at the end. And it's really trying to understand the student's experience of school and asking questions. It's with hands-on activities. So there's lots of activities you can do. So what do you miss when you're absent from school, and who do you miss when you're absent? What changes would make school a better experience for you? What do you like about school? What do you not like? What do you need? What feelings, thoughts, and concerns do you have about school? So we're really trying to understand what's going on and what are their interests, passions, motivators, because we need that information, a strength-based approach where we're using what motivates them to get out of bed, to leave their house, to get into school, and really integrate that into their school experience. So it might be a preschool job. So here are some activities from that book. So, trying to understand their feelings about school. I mean, if you ask them, why are you not attending school? How do you feel? What is the problem? Whatever, it's going to be very difficult for them to describe that because they don't know, right? So, I mean, like that thing, that takes a lot of awareness, language, understanding what to do, here's some strategies what might help you. And so here we're talking about some coping. So you can shelve your problem, put it aside, so pause. Share it, so talking cuts the problem in half. Shout it, releasing, and releasing by movement, using your energy, or and then shedding it, so letting go of your problems and sharing them with others or releasing them in some way. So we need a team. Who should be on the education support team? And notice I'm using language education support. So it's not a deficit-based language approach I'm using. There's not something wrong with the student. The idea is we're here to support. How can we support you to get an education? We need a team. Who should be on the team? I'm going to tell you the answer. In the middle, we need the student and family. If the student is at tier 3 crisis, they are at home, probably depressed, sleeping all day because they didn't sleep at night, not functioning. They might be able to get out of the house for the things that they like. They might have belonged to some teams, some clubs, something. So still being engaged in the world is a great sign, very positive. In some literature on this, it says take away what the students like. Make the home, punish the student when they're at home. Don't give them their electronic devices or anything that makes you want to make the home a horrible place so they want to be at school. Don't do that. The student is depressed. No, we want to support the student. We want to find how they can keep engaged, because if they're still engaged with the world, we're on some steps that we can take to get it back into school. Other people, school administration, principal, vice principal, trusted adults in the school, and outside treatment professionals. So, these are some examples. The team can be all different kinds of people. Then the strategy, we want a strategy, and I developed this strategy. You can use it if you want. I think it's a great strategy. The education support team is using this strategy. So the number one thing you're going to do is you need assessment, you need information, you need documentation. So, and I'll, talk about that next. And then the team will review all the documentation. And then once they've got that information, that will help them take some, develop some plans, some action plans, support plans, communication plans, and review the plans together, and then take action and evaluate the action and, tweak it when necessary. So using a whole school change framework, it's a strategic approach, focuses on student well-being, engagement, attendance and achievement, and social and emotional health. Collaborative effort, everyone's involved, clear vision, strategic planning, commitment to embedding new practices into the school's culture and daily operations. So how do we do it? Everyone in the school's involved. Use data to improve intervention and to monitor. Build the commitment from the whole school to support the school community, the students in the school. Develop SMART goals, so what's manageable. Invest in ongoing training, building leadership at all levels. So we want to encourage student voice and leadership, family voice, involvement, and school staff. Cultivate school-wide engagement and a culture of learning. So really integrating lived experience in this. So that's really critical. So what information do we need? Who do we need to get the information from? So we need information from the students. So what information do we need to get? In the guidebook, there's 4 pages of questions and it's very easy to do because it's like a checklist. It's not time consuming because you don't want an assessment form that's going to be like more bureaucracy and, working away from the problem. So, think about the kinds of information. Definitely, as I said earlier, we want to know their experience of school and what could help them or whatever. So we want some background. Um, we want to know how long they've been away, what supports they have already in place. What information do we need to get from parents or caregivers? Often parents are not included in this. They might not be involved in school meetings, as valued, important partners in supporting their child, which is sort of strange, I find, because they're probably the only voice for the child, because if the child's at tier 3, they're probably not attending school. So, you might not get the student, actively involved in person, but we need the parents there to advocate and speak on behalf of their child. So we need some information from parents that can help guide us in the best ways of supporting their child. And we need information from school support professionals who already might be working with the student, the social worker, the attendance counselor, the psychologist, other people who might be involved. And I didn't include this here, I think, but we also need school admin who hopefully is doing a school climate assessment, and that assessment is included in the guidebook as well. So action plans are the next step from assessment, and we need to identify key adults who will own the plan and make sure that it's regularly reviewed. The goals need to be driven by the student and achievable, updated regularly. Timetable, creating the timetable with the student or the family member speaking on their behalf. Shareable document, everyone on the support team knows, but also we want information for the school community that they're familiar with, the students getting support. How can the whole school community support them? Start review date, safe adults and places. So identify the trusted adults for the student and the places in the school that they can go to regulate their emotions, to feel a welcome, soft entry place, a landing place. And then actions, skills and strategies the student has, strategies that adults can help the student with, those kind of things. So here are some examples of action plans that you can use. Tier 1, I talked about the wellness action plan. A communication plan really helps because, even from the first month of September, before families get the individual education plan sent to them, you want the people in the school familiar. So an information sheet with contact numbers and ways to contact, email addresses, whatever. Or, you might have some online communication tools you're using. Education support plan, school access plan, reentry plan, a daily maintenance plan. So there's a plan like that in the guidebook. It goes every hour. So the Sunday night plan, the Monday morning plan, um, entry to school plan. So every hour, it's sort of you're looking at strategies to do it in there. So week plan, what went well, those kind of things. So here's some examples of plans that are in the guidebook. I'm working on the second edition, so I might make some tweaks to these plans, but this is what it looks like now. And there's lots of, so I grouped accommodations. So assessment accommodations for students with anxiety, for example, or I can't remember what accommodation, but there's lots of different accommodations. And then accommodations for absence, because we can always think of accommodations when the student's in the school, so more time with the test and whatever. But when they're not in school, we need accommodations. So what can we be doing when they're not in school to support their education, their right to an education? It's not out of sight, out of mind. It's like, how do we keep engaging with that student and that they know they're not forgotten, that they're present in our minds. So here, identifying key places, key people. And here's what I was saying, that a daily maintenance plan or reentry action plan. So you're looking at each stage here, what supports are needed. And then I think this is so this is the question: accommodations when the student's not physically in the school building. That's the challenge. So I like the tiny steps approach because we're not overloading the student with heavy expectations that are just going to set them back. And so, rather than using language that's sort of therapeutic language that excludes people who are not of that background. We have to use plain language that is accessible to everyone if we want everyone to be on the education support team. So tiny steps approach, everyone gets the idea. We're building a ladder for the student. We're not saying, here's the ladder. We're building it with them. And then step by step, what are we going to do? Um, so make progress feel possible, build evidence of their ability. I can do X. So it's a real CBT approach, cognitive behavior therapy, building evidence what you did before, you can do it again, and creating stories of success. So looking at this hierarchy or a ladder, looking at situations that the student might have in school from least feared to most feared and sort of building a ladder or hierarchy, what can, to reach each sort of situation or to manage these situations. Okay, I'm reading the chat, so I shouldn't get sort of distracted. So tier 3 targeted support. So I'm giving you some examples of educational accommodations with absent. So student support management, one assigned trusted adult, weekly education support team meetings, alternative instruction, so access to online and recorded lessons or home instruction services if it's available in New Brunswick. I don't know. In Ontario it is, but a lot of people don't know. What it does is you fill in a form and you see it a lot more with physical illness. So people, with these issues, often people aren't aware that there's the same rights that's to services that students have, where you can get a teacher who can go to the home for 3 hours a week. That's in Ontario. So every province is different. Provides assignment outlines in advance, so the building confidence, option for alternative assessments, so looking at what can work, whatever, reintegration plan, daily, weekly check-in, individualized schooling models. I put here because some of the best practices we see internationally are boarding schools with structured school and living supports. So sometimes that is the model that's needed for some students, and that I want to include it so that we're not just, oh, we're one size fits all, let's just stay with what we have if it still doesn't fit the needs of students. And in some of the success stories internationally, that has worked for students. Counseling, wellness action plans, staff trained, data tracking really important, monitoring, looking at patterns, self-reflection, so looking at qualitative data that's helping us, review meetings, all of those things. So why does attendance data collection matter? In what ways can data collection be helpful for supporting students with school attendance challenges? So it's helpful for early intervention. I think that's the biggest thing, and that we want to be more proactive and not wait till it's at a point where it's so much more difficult to support. So data collection involves looking at demographics, academics, attendance, social emotional health, tech usage, data storage. So what kind of systems are we using? Is it roll calls? Is it online data evaluation? So student feedback, teacher, all different ways that we can look at the data, monitor it, analyze it, evaluate it, make recommendations, look for patterns, implementation, looking at student profiles, all kinds of things. So, and that everyone's involved in that. In May, we had a virtual conference, our first one. It was so incredible. I've been to lots of conferences and it was so exciting. We had over 460 people registered, 40% Indigenous, international presenters from Europe and Australia, New Zealand, South America, United States, all over. It was so incredible. Lots of great energy and great strategies. Our next one, we've just launched the information. Actually, the title's a little bit different. It's Waves of Change in School Attendance Challenges, Addressing Barriers to Education with Tiered School-Wide Strategies. So it's a little bit different. But anyway, it's the link is now launched or whatever you call it. So the book that I mentioned, My Experience of Schools on the left, and upstream prevention, and really, I think such fantastic activities that we can do with students to try and understand what their experience is to support them. And then I'm working on the second edition. It's going to be much bigger with a lot more checklists, a lot more practical things that we can use in schools to support students, and the title is going to be different as well. This is Tier 1. We just launched it in September. It's really hugely popular, which is so exciting. My first online course that I wrote. It's called the Youth Wellness Action Plan, and it really helps you go through the ASAP model of, and then what you get with this course is that book that's at the top, that's photocopyable. You can use it with students. So it really goes through a framework of understanding why supporting student well-being is critical for all students, just like we prepare students with fire drills and lockdowns and all those other safety drills. Student safety and well-being should be a school-wide practice. So and there's expert interviews and youth leaders that are part of this, and these are the objectives. And then a top lawyer and mental health advocate in the course reviewed the course, and he wrote this beautiful quote, that he's writing his own book now. I reviewed it, and just an amazing story, an amazing person. And he said basically that we all need more training in this to understand that so many students are struggling with so many different issues. This is the course I'm working on now, which will be ready soon. And it's much bigger than the other one. It's going to be an online certificate course, school-wide strategies to support students with. So a lot of the recordings from the conference, those expert interviews, will be integrated in this online course. And there's a lot more sessions. And with the course, you'll get those 2 books photocopyable. And those are some of the course outcomes. And we changed the title of the website. It's School Attendance Challenges. So ymhc.ngo, SAC. So you see the findings from 519 families, over 400 stories, a report on, the findings and the research over the last 100 years that internationally that has, interestingly, we're always evolving in this field, and I belong to the International Network for School Attendance, and every 2 years we have a conference in different places in the world, which is exciting. And we're a very passionate group of people who are just, it's an exciting group to belong to. I belong to a lot of different groups. And but what I was saying about evolving is our language, our understanding. And I've been an educator since I was 22, a long time, and I've worked in this field for 33 years. And our understanding of language to use and approaches. One of the top researchers internationally, if that you might know, Dr. Christopher Carney, he used to call it school refusal. And he developed a school refusal assessment scale. He no longer calls it school refusal. He calls it school attendance problems. And he's doing more research on the nature of the students missing. Disability, number one. Disability. So mental health disabilities, learning disabilities, ASD, all the whole range, and how school can be traumatizing and disabling. So, really looking at that. So I'll open it up for questions, comments, discussion, because I asked a lot of questions. So, maybe you've got some ideas on the challenges you've experienced, what you've done, that you felt was helpful. Any ideas?
Well, as people are taking time to think of their question or put it in the chat for us, Cheryl, I just want to thank you. Your passion is very evident, and I know it was really hard for what we asked for today, and to frame the context and present the issue and look at those ways that we can address the challenges. We'll be sending out a recording to everyone, and there will be links also in the email we send out to your website and to the resources that you mentioned. Um, yes, yes. So we'll be sharing this recording. And I just appreciate it because I appreciate how you've framed it as a challenge. But when we work as a team, I think we can make real progress. So I think back about the hundreds, probably over 100 hours spent in staff meetings thinking about how can we address attendance at the school, and often thinking, about it as maybe school wasn't engaging enough for the student, and that's why they weren't coming, or our classes weren't engaging enough. But you've given us a real perspective here today.
So I'll answer some of the questions that are coming in. Is there a fee? Yes, the fee for the Youth Wellness Action Plan course, it's with the early bird rate, and we'll have specials at different times. So maybe in September we'll have a special, but it's 300, and it includes the book, which is $50 photocopyable. So the course is 250 plus the $50 books, and you get a certificate with that. Generally, it takes about 5 hours. It's a great PD, professional development activity that schools can do. And it gives I think, a great overview of strategies to work with young people in ways that I think there's internationally not many resources, and certainly not with the frame of reference I'm using to really empower students with proactive preventative strategies. Often what we have in Canada is very crisis driven. Um, Families need support more now more than ever. Definitely 100%. Often people say, well, the parents are, no, a team approach, everyone's rowing in the same direction. We're all rowing. We're there to support the student. That's our focus. And really, I just want to say, if you're on the front line as an educator, you know the challenges fully of being in the education system, being an educator now. It's not easy. And one thing, and I'm getting so inspired by what's happening in the United Kingdom now. It's so exciting. Come to our conference and you'll hear from some of the people, but parents and educators are joining forces to really advocate for change in the education system. That's what we need, people working together, because it's not working for educators and it's not working for families. How can we join forces that say we need small class sizes, we need more learning and mental health supports, we need more training, we need, whatever. So I think that's so exciting. Will the slide deck, apparently, yes, it's going to be available. Apparently getting a recording. What other questions? Somebody asked something. I missed something earlier. Somebody said they came in late and I don't know what they said, but something about learning support or something.
I believe I have the question you're referring to. It
Okay.
says, was there anything discussed about sharing learning opportunities with administration or division staff to better support students? This is someone who joined us in progress throughout the presentation.
Well, I think everything I was talking about was having school administration,
Yeah.
one, building the wellness, a school climate. right? So that their responsibility is supporting student and staff well-being by doing an assessment of the school climate. So, we really want a strong school climate. I find it a little bit concerning in the community I live in now. I just moved here just before the pandemic. I'm originally from Hamilton. I left when I was 18 and I just moved back. And I went to school meetings. They had open consultations because there was a young person who was bullied and died at 14 years old. And so they did school community consultations. And the lack of pride, I've been to a number of school meetings here that students have for their school is so concerning when I never experienced it ever before. I've worked in a lot of schools in my life. So if the students don't feel a sense of pride and belonging and positive sort of things, that's really concerning. So that's where school administration is building. And as you see in the education support team, they're in that meeting. They're part of that team, right? So the tiny steps approach, I think it's such great language, very practical, things that are manageable, right? So that we're not overstepping and expecting the student to do, and then what do? They shut down. I can't do it. It's not going to happen. And then the school stress response activates or trauma response. No, we don't want that. Let's work together. Tiny steps. What can we do? How can we build step by step? And I think it's more compassionate, more, aware and constructive. Yes, yeah, exactly. Internationally, not many resources. I'm the only person I know who's providing training to education mental health professionals or has done workshops for parents and families. So yes, we need very practical resources. I have them. And I think this, it can be really exhausting doing like the training courses I was doing were 15 hours and developing an online course. I spent many hours developing the materials and the sessions and recording the sessions. It's 70 sessions so far. 70, you know. But I think in the end, it's on demand and self-paced, and that people can do it as part of PD, professional development. Families can do it to get, informed what they can advocate for so their families aren't alone. Use the resources, get skilled, become aware, and now you can say, I would like to set up an education support team.
Well,
Because
you've given,
Cheryl told you it's a good idea.
yes, you've left us with an action, Cheryl. So thank you so much again for presenting for us today and for your wealth of knowledge. And yes, we welcome people to reach out to you, to reach out to us, and we will send the recording to the emails that you have registered with. So thank you, everyone. Thanks again for joining us. And thank you for the incredible work that you're doing in the schools. And Cheryl, thank you for the incredible work that you're doing to support
Thank
us
you.
educators.
Great. Thank you
So
so much for inviting me. Okay. Bye-bye,
thank
everyone.
you.